welcome back to Art with Danny. Today we will be drawing George Jetson from the classic 60s animated series called The Jetsons. So let's begin. So a brief history of The Jetsons. It started in the 60s as pretty much the futuristic version of the Flintstones. But unfortunately it only lasted one season until it was brought back in the 80s for 2 additional seasons because it was that popular in reruns. They were like, you know what, let's capitalize on this, and they did. And George himself is pretty much one of the main characters, as it's about family, and he was voiced by George O'Hanlon, who, you know, even in the 80s when it was brought back, he came back to voice the character. Unfortunately, he had suffered some health issues, including a stroke, and he couldn't actually see his lines. His visibility, his eye vision had suffered. So what they would do is the voice director would say his line for him and he would mimic it back in the George Jetson voice. So there you go, some trivia for you. In fact, some more trivia. George O'Hanlon voiced the character in the movie, because there was an animated movie in the 90s, which would be his final time voicing the character, because unfortunately he actually passed away in the middle of production. Him and Mel Blanc, who voices Mr. Spacely in the series, Mel Blanc, you may remember, the man of 1,000 voices, voiced Bugs Bunny, voiced Barney Rubble from a previous Hanna-Barbera series, The Flintstones. They both passed away during production, with only, I think, you know, they still needed extra dialogue recorded, which is very unfortunate, you know, because they were both pretty awesome, pretty talented actors. But lo and behold, another voice actor previously talked about, Jeff Bergman, who you may remember is now the current voice of Fred Flintstone and various Looney Tunes characters voiced by Mel Blanc. He stepped into the recording booth to finish voicing these characters because his, at the time, they were impressions. His impressions were that spot on that, you know, nobody could tell the difference between the two. In fact, there's this little rumor, I believe, I don't know if it's true or not, that to kind of further, you know, demonstrate his abilities, he would use the original recordings of Mel Blanc, or the person he was imitating, and another tape of him doing the lines, and he would switch them so people wouldn't know, you know, couldn't tell the difference. And he was that talented that people couldn't tell the difference because, you know, his impressions were pretty spot on. So yeah, he came in and he finished voicing the movie as Mr. Spacely and George Jetson, and is now currently the current voice of these characters. And I think the last time he voiced them was in 2017 for a movie. So there you go, people. Facts. And as I previously mentioned, the Jetsons were pretty much the futuristic counterpart to the Flintstones. And in fact, there's a movie out there where the Jetsons from the future do meet the Flintstones from the past. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend, because it was a pretty good movie. And it was pretty funny seeing these. I believe, if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I've seen it, but Elroy, who is son of George Jetson, and he's like a tinkerer, an inventor, he makes a time machine and they go back to the past and get stuck with the Flintstones. And, you know, shenanigans ensue, as they do. Yeah, I believe it was pretty funny, if I remember correctly. I'll have to rewatch it. And here's another kind of interesting thing to think of about the Jetsons. They've predicted a lot of things that have come into fruition in present time. For example, they've, you know, the Apple, whatchamacallit, you know, the watches, they've predicted that, they've predicted 3D televisions, they've predicted a lot. And considering the show came from the 60s, it's pretty interesting, you know, what has since happened that they've predicted. So if you haven't seen the Jetsons, I recommend you check it out and, you know, pinpoint the little inventions that have since been created, because it's pretty cool. And if not for that reason, just watch the Jetsons, because it's classic. It is classic. And I remember every night at 6 o'clock, the Flintstones would be on. And then 7 o'clock, it was followed by the Jetsons. And that's my childhood memory of this classic TV show. Belt. And there you have it, everybody. That's how you draw George Jetson. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned next week where we draw more Jetson family members. Bye guys!